is your belief then? What is your belief?
I actually don't have a belief.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the right information to come along before I make a decision, because I know what was forced on me when I was too young to critically think in elementary school. And a lot of people, just because it was taught, just because these things were taught by an authority, or because it was the first thing that they were taught, they believe it no matter what, without question, despite the fact that they didn't research this stuff. It was forced on them. They didn't go to college, and like these people, I mean, some people did, but that's irrelevant because that's still authority. A lot of, in elementary school, we weren't, they didn't sit down and really show us the science behind everything. They just told us this is how it was, they give us these workbooks that really, like history books and science books that are basically just a narrative, which is a big government narrative. And I just don't see these things that were taught to me in elementary school and that I watched on Discovery Channel, on the History Channel growing up. I don't see these things as being completely... I don't have enough evidence. Not that I wasn't educated. I was not given enough evidence to make these decisions and have these claims to the death. I deal with all these guys that are like, no, I know. And it's like, I don't believe they have the foundation to make the claims.
Okay.
And so when I see people on the flat earth side of things and on the other side of the flat earth side of things using these horrible arguments and espousing that they know these things for a fact, when I know as a human in this realm, there's not enough evidence, concrete, irrefutable, without a shadow of a doubt evidence for me to make these claims, especially to criticize others for educating themselves and researching things that are, not the mainstream. So when I see, big people in our movement, these thought leaders, completely ad hominem attacking massive amounts of people and making huge generalizations about things, it offends me. I don't get offended easy. I'm one of the, I'm much for the getting offended is for bitches type of thing, but it offends me intellectually. It's, it's kind of an insult to my intelligence when I see that happening. So I put myself out there as this guy, this flat earther, even though I'm not. And I've, been talking about this stuff for years with people, and, I haven't seen, I don't think anyone has enough evidence to make these kinds of claims. And without appealing to authority or appealing to the people or making some sort of fallacious non-arguments. And I don't know if you watched my debate with Daryl last week, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I apologize. I was actually getting confused because I thought you were actually him. I thought he was the one presenting the video, but it was actually you. So I got confused on the dialogue.
Oh no, I just titled it. I clickbait titled it to kind of con non-flat earthers into watching the entire thing.
Right.
And just to have them see something that they didn't expect, basically.
Of course.
I know more. I know I knew if I titled it that, it would probably get more views overall.
That's right. That's just typical SEO. It's makes sense.
Yeah.
There you go. But it's interesting. It's interesting though, because it's you make the assertion of, okay, what we were taught, is forced on us and everything. But in that is kind of a, it's kind of just a school of thought, so to speak, necessarily. What I think, though, is that my question to that is very simplistic. Is it actually wrong, what we were taught? Is it wrong? And how is it wrong?
it can be wrong. If it can be wrong, it can be wrong.
Sure. I mean, 1 + 1 is that wrong? 1 + 1 = 2. Is that wrong by default because it was taught to us by an authority figure?
No, and that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying everything that was. I'm saying most for sure, but not everything.
Most. Okay.
And that's absolutely not.
Okay.
If there's a chance of it being wrong, then it can be wrong, and we all should look at it like it can be wrong. Sure. But that's not what's happening. Everybody's saying it's not wrong. Everybody's saying they're right. And I'm saying you don't have the foundation to say you're right, unless you've been up there, which none of you have. I mean, even the SpaceX shareholder, he hasn't even been up there, and he had to finally admit that he couldn't really admit it, or he couldn't really prove it.
Sure.
Which was huge. I've never seen anyone, I commend him for telling the truth,
Oh, of course.
But he, Daryl is neck deep in that scene, his fiance is a space person, he is so neck deep in that scene that he can't, I don't believe he's ever stepped out of himself and actually considered the fact that most of what he's involved with might be fake, might be fabricated. I don't think he's ever asked himself that, therefore I don't see him as being very credible. Despite the fact that he claims, he says he owns all these companies, but he really just owns some stock in a bunch of companies, that have a hierarchy, and he's not at the top of that hierarchy. As long as there's a hierarchy, just like government, just like military, secrets are deceptions are made and kept in hierarchies. And as long as there's a CEO that doesn't allow the rest of the shareholders see everything, then there's room for deception. And that's why I don't see, even Daryl being someone who owns 13, shares in 13 different companies and space companies, I don't see him as being credible in the least bit, because he's so, it's like asking a cop to stop being a cop for a minute, it's just not, it's not something that they can most people can't psychologically do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of these people that get red in the face, ad hominem attacking people who thoroughly research, are just, they're so, they're like, I call them Star Trek nerds. Like, they're Star Trek nerds that, we grew up with, that just so romanticize the idea of space as NASA taught it to us, that they just completely blindly follow, whatever the government and NASA says, despite the fact that they claim to be truthers and they claim to be completely against the government. It's like, okay, the government lies except for space stuff, right? It's like, I just don't buy it. And I've asked I've asked for concrete evidence for years now, and I haven't been given any. And I'm a guy put up a Kickstarter to try and raise money to send me up on the Blue Origin, I'm willing to, I am willing, and I will be the first person to admit if I get enough evidence and make a decision on this, but I don't right now.
I think it just comes down to objective thought, and being objective. The one thing that Flat Earth does, and it does well, if it does anything at all, is literally the clever thing that it does is it transfers the burden of proof to us as individuals, which is pretty cool, because then it forces you to do your homework. It forces you to, step outside and investigate, which is, I think, is kind of brilliant in and of itself in that respect. But that's literally where it stops.
Yeah,
but it's good that it at least does that.
I've thoroughly researched Flat Earth. And what I think it's interesting, it was very similar. I had an epiphany doing some research, probably, 10 years ago, researching World War II. And I've researched World War II since I was old enough to get into libraries when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I always
Oddly
felt
enough,
that,
not to interrupt, but it's like for some reason lately I've been drawn to that for like studying World War II all of a sudden. And studying just about what the mindset of Hitler and the mindset of the German population at that point in time. Very interesting stuff.
Well, once once your eyes open to stuff, you can revise and look at things from the past. But I had an epiphany doing an extremely, extremely deep dive on World War II stuff, and like political climate in the world. And I stumbled onto some pretty sketchy information that completely made me look at everything different. And Flat Earth, and also this more recent Tartarian conspiracy stuff. I don't know if you've heard of that stuff yet. It opened my mind, like, whether or not it's bullshit or not, whether or not all of it is wrong, it opened my mind wider, and now, like, it's hard to explain, like, it was, whether or not it was true or not, it made me look at the world completely different, I think, in a more open-minded way, whether or not, just making you, it forces you to fully question everything, fully everything. And then if you're in a place in your life, where you can really open your mind, it was a pretty cool experience. And even looking back, at all of, the hours and hours and hours, like, I don't know, probably like 100 videos, several of them a couple hours long, like, lots of research, to find out that I didn't really, that this model that these guys came up with, I don't really believe in, or I don't have enough evidence. That basically made me, I kind of, made me kind of believe, less, really. It reinforced my agnostic position, which I was naturally going to, 10 years in on my, journey of being a libertarian anarchist researcher, I guess I could call it. But yeah, I can't blow smoke up my own ass and believe this stuff and believe that I know, and believe that I have I can't stand the people ad hominem attacking people for researching or telling people not to research something because it's stupid, or because everyone's going to think you're stupid because you talk about or research this stuff, and that just despite what the subject is, that infuriates me when people say that shit. Or when like big thought leaders, like people that are big in our movement, are like just like shitting on thousands of people, generalizations and stuff, and it's just like, dude, you should be telling people to research everything, like, and it's...
Yeah, but at the same time, researching things does not mean putting in its place, the bullshit conspiracy theory either.
For sure. And with Flat Earth and the Tartarian thing, that there, of course, instantly there's this group of people that shows up that takes everything way too far. And those are the ones that the antis attach to, and that like movies are made about these idiots, Meanwhile, we're like, oh great, like this person's just completely co-opted. It's just whenever big ideas come out, they get co-opted by morons or the powers that be.
Right, exactly. As the conspiracy theory presents itself, and it could be argued, well, the CIA kind of created the whole, it's like, I don't care. But, it's just like I'm calling something a conspiracy theory because it actually is. Yeah. It has no foundation in observable
You're not using reality. The propagandized version of the statement, conspiracy theorist, like you're using the actual, definition.
Yeah, I'm using the actual because it's just like something that, it's interesting because, Flat Earth as a conspiracy theory does, to me, reinforces spherical Earth. It actually does, in terms of what it proposes. Flat Earth in terms of its own model, which is, it holds the irony of cartoon CGI renditions of a flat Earth, which is, the irony is, the whole thing is riddled in irony, honestly. But you have the representation of a sun and moon swirling circularly above our heads, encased inside of an invisible dome. That's assumed, you've got these imaginary elements.
It's definitely assumed, and it's assumed. It's assumed by the anti that this is what the model is, and that's what happens a lot. I got these, you see videos of people like, flat earthers say this, and that's like right off the bat, that's a fallacious statement. And, you can't really say what everyone's saying. That's why I have the position I have. And in my eyes, like, if I had to, playing devil's advocate, I don't see, everyone's like, oh, it's like a plate, and you could, cats knock things off of it and stuff like that. And it's like, you go on YouTube and you see this, flat earth argument destroyed, and it's a picture of, something super goofy, and it's like, okay, well, I'm leaning towards the opinion that there's simply a lot more space out there. I don't care whether it's flat or round. I think there's a chance. I think since there's a chance, since, there are powers that be that do lie to us completely about everything, maybe, we have been convinced, because they can convince us, because they do control everything, that we're in this limited space where scarcity reigns supreme, Scarcity is what our whole society is based off of, the fact that, there's only so much land, and there's almost so much gold, and there's only so much farming land, and blah, 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 and water and stuff like that. Their whole system, the powers that be, their whole system is set up off of this system, and we've been in it, and we're completely enslaved to it. And since they control all the information, all the transportation, all the, all the high science, they control all this stuff. So the whole, have you seen, what's the movie, babe? The funny guy, oh God, Jim Carrey movie where he's in the little pod, the little.
Are you talking about? I can't even.
Truman Show.
Truman
Show.
Yeah, Truman. That's always referenced.
Yeah, it's referenced a lot, but it's a very good reference. It is. When they do have us in a little space, and they have convinced us that all these, that we can't go up there, and we can't go down there, and we can't go out there, so as long as there is a chance, there could be some massive deception going on, and I think that's a pretty reasonable position to take as, truthers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Opposed to, no, I know because in elementary school they taught me, there was a globe on the school, the teacher's table, they taught me this, therefore I know, and you must have not graduated elementary school and all this stuff, all this ad hominem that's 90% of the conversation around this subject.
Sure.
So,
but in reality, it's either one thing or the other. It is either what we have been taught,
or not.
Is ideology, rhetoric, dogmatic, dogmatic belief system. Or it is what we collectively understand as the truth, and so it's either one of the two. And put it to you this way, and please don't take offense to this, but if I was tasked with finding the truth about something, and I was tasked with building a team of people to help me find the truth, the last people on Earth I would want are anti-government conspiracy theorists, because they tend to be the most ineffective human beings, because, the government lies, and therefore that makes everything that, is conspiratorial true. And I just don't believe in that blanketing of, because here's the reality. The human condition is not corrupt. The human condition has the potentiality for corruption. As we're both good and bad, good and evil, truthful and dishonest. So there's the potential there. And so I just, and I kind of laugh the whole, flat Earth thing, because it's like, what makes understanding that premise of the potential of human corruption, what makes the conspiracy theory the beacon of altruistic truth?
Well, I feel like you're maybe again, kind of general, or you're possibly again assuming the model.
Okay,
You're assuming that conspiracy heads think all their conspiracies are true.
Right.
When in my experience, most conspiracy heads I've met are in the process of researching and are continuingly to always research, and don't necessarily. I mean, most conspiracy heads I know will admit that they might be wrong at the end of the day, where these statists that are standing by their school teachings swear they know for a fact. So I think you might be assuming that all these conspiracy people are saying simply because it's not, since it's from the government, it's not right, which I don't think is 100% accurate, and it's kind of a generalization. And it's still appealing to the people. You're still, like you just said, the collective believes something is true. That means it's true. That's still an appeal to the people, and the people can always be wrong, especially when they've been duped for 100, 200, 300 years, or 3,000 years. How many resets we've had, probably. Whoops. So I don't, again, I always see these big fallacies being used, by people who are criticizing the conspiracy heads, because it's like, oh, well, flat earthers say this, and that's, what's that fallacy, babe? What's it called? A conflagration or something? Where it's like, that statement alone, the fact that you're saying that all flat earthers think something, or all conspiracy heads think a certain way, it's just, you kind of lose me there, because I don't believe that that's the case, and that's an easy way to kind of dismiss millions of people. It's just, oh, they're flat earthers, oh, they're conspiracy heads. Assuming.
I'm just saying in terms of an ideology, in terms of but here's the thing, you could say, okay, well, the ones that are truth seekers, they're researching. But a lot of times, and you got to admit this, that a lot of times people inadvertently fall victim to belief systems. They fall victim to biases.
Yeah, like I said earlier, there's always a group.
Very natural.
There's always a group of people, of extremists, that show up and ruin it. But you have to acknowledge that there are extremists, and that might not be what everyone is saying. And I think this conspiracy heads are all flat earthers, like, really stifles, a lot of speculation and a lot of research that like isn't as clear as what some people say, because there is no concrete proof, because we can't, just because we look up and see stars doesn't mean that's what NASA approved, NASA told us that, and that all that is real. We can look at something and be mistaken about what it is, like these people that say, oh, at night I see a light moving in the sky, that's a satellite. They say that all day long, and it's like, you don't know, that's just a light. They're like, I can see it with my eyes, and you've been told that's a satellite, that's why you think it's a satellite. And it all goes back to things that we've been told, and we've, the more every year that goes by, we look back at things we were told in the past and figure out that they were completely bullshit. Like real conspiracies that come out that are like, oh wow, they lied to us about that, and it's...
Those are not conspiracies, those are injustices. So when something, becomes... Now, here's the point I've always tried to make. Now, even what you're talking about is kind of neither here nor there, because it's kind of supposed. It's kind of, you're kind of juxtaposing a...
Well, I don't have a claim.
In a kind of a glorified way. You are, which, I mean, the one thing I understand, the one thing why I'm here talking to you is just the psychology of this really intrigues me. It's very interesting.
Well, after being lied to my whole life, now, I'm more critical of the information that I believe is true.
Here's my point, and this is, I've always maintained this. As far as some, conspiracy theories like flat Earth, you may disagree, are kind of fodder for the imagination. It's kind of fodder for the ego.
Yeah, they're endless.
Stuff like this just kind of
they're endless rabbit holes that don't really have an ending to them, and I absolutely acknowledge that. In a lot of these conspiracies, like I said earlier, the Tartarian reset stuff, that's like, it's just endless. Like, it can just go back thousands of years, and it's like, we're most likely never going to find evidence for anything like this. But I would say the flat Earth stuff isn't quite, because there are things we can still do to find some sort of evidence. So I don't think they are necessarily simply fodder for the imagination or one of these endless rabbit holes, because there are some questions that haven't been answered, and we are living in it now, opposed to like some of these other historical conspiracies where it's hundreds of years away in the past. We've built cities over all the foundations, so we don't know anymore. Like, there's no information left, and the powers that be have controlled the information enough to where they've sterilized our environment of our true history. So it's like, I just can't
Well, it's kind of generalized ideology is what you're kind of going into at this point. But I mean, in terms of flat Earth, in terms of heliocentric spherical Earth, what questions have not been answered? What is in question in your mind?
Well, like I said, I think we may have been convinced we have. I'm not making claims. Remember?
Okay.
I'm playing devil's advocate right now because just to have something to talk about. So
this is what I'm sorry. This is my tangent, or I'm just differentiating between, what is just kind of all, just putting it out there, supposed, and kind of, quotations and
Well, suppose we've been lied to. By everyone, by every authority figure on this realm that we're in.
That's just generalized ideology. What have we been lied to about spherical Earth? I'm just curious.
Have we been lied to about?
If you could pinpoint anything.
I was just gonna say it, but you cut me off.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So. Maybe, okay, so they show us the map, a globe, what if they lied to us about that, and just beyond what they show us on the globe, there's more land and more natural resources, and so much land that the powers that be would not be able to control the people once they found out about it. People just instantly become ungovernable. They're like, why would I stay in this hellhole slave state when I could go out there and possibly live a better life?
Okay, but now you're kind of just spinning out on the ideology aspect of it again. Is there any catalyst? Is there anything that indicates
maybe you need to ask a more specific question. What's that?
Is there any catalyst that you can point to that we are not living where we are told where we live? As far as the geographical shape of the Earth,
why
would you ascertain that because you go into all this, the government is controlling and they're controlling our lives. I mean, that's just kind of like conspiratorial ideology, and that's the dialogue.
I don't think that's
surrounds it,
and that's bad.
So
like that's inaccurate, or it's not. We're all speculating here. Like, you're asking me to speculate factually.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of understand if this is more just fodder.
As long as there's a chance, there's a chance.
Okay.
And I got I think you're coming from a position. You're saying that there's no chance, and I disagree with that. I think there's very much a chance that we could have been lied to about our realm, and there could be something else out there. I don't know. Maybe it's all water. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's triangular shaped, not globe. Like, who knows at the end of the day. So let's not waste our time focusing on these things that we think we know.
Of course.
And maybe do, like, instead of all arguing about flat Earth, maybe we, you know, figure something out,
Sure.
you know, and do some like real boots on the ground research instead of just arguing on Facebook, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, one of my points, or my main, sorry, I got a call. I'm going to ignore that. Anyways, so one of my main points is, you know, okay, one of my main gigs is I work in the financial industry, and I know you have work in a similar capacity as far as like investments, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And are you into like all the NFT stuff yet?
No.
No. Okay. Still learning about that stuff.
No, I'm not. I know about them. I don't see them being useful right now.
Right.
You know, deeds, titles to cars, stuff like that in the future, totally rad. But all this art stuff is a waste of time and waste of energy, in my opinion.
Stuff. Sorry, I kind of sidelined there, but, you know, one of my main gigs is working in the financial industry, and you know, it's opened my eyes in many different ways. And what I draw a distinction to is kind of like, okay, you know, the flat Earth thing and other, you know, conspiracy theories, you know, that people like get all hot and bothered and, you know, just arguing about. And the reality is there are systemic, I'm not going to say conspiracy theories, but they're systemic injustices that we accept as our normal everyday lives. You know, it's interesting.
It's crazy.
It's like
people that use banks.
Oh yeah.
It's batshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
no, it's interesting.
The entity is there to steal money from you, and you just are okay with it. You know, like I understand.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the fiat money. You get our fiat currency.
Yeah,
it's not good. But, you know, it's interesting. One thing I've learned to pay attention to is words and the origin of words. Working in the financial industry, because you know what? One thing that really tipped me off is I learned what the word mortgage meant. And it's not what people think. Oh, it's like, it's a loan. It's like, no, I'm not talking about what it is. I'm talking about
the etymology of the words. Yeah.
Yeah. What does the actual word mean? Okay, it's like, well, you have a prefix and suffix. You have mort and gauge. Well, what does mort sound like? Let's see here. Mortician, morbidity, mortality. Oh, that has to do with death. And then you've got the word gauge, which I believe the origin, I could be slightly off about this, but I believe the origin is like to gauge something is to measure something. So in reference to a mortgage, that is a measurement of time. So basically, when we are signing a mortgage, we are signing ultimately a death agreement, which is pertaining to the amortization of the interest of the loan, meaning it's not meant to be paid off. Now, I know I'm kind of spinning off on a tangent here, but my point is that, you know, we don't really need to look very far for the conspiracies and or the injustices in our lives, because they are built into the system that we live in, that we partake in every day. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. Wouldn't mortgage, that's interesting. Couldn't mort mean mortar? Like brick and mortar? And you're paying for a house?
Yeah, that could be. But, you know, I mean, even like the word real estate, you know, estate, this one I'm not 100% clear on, but I believe it is basically saying of the land. Yeah. Like real estate is of the land. And so who owns the land? Which is not you and I, it's the government.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. And they say it's real, but it's not real. Like, it's like the Federal Reserve, you know, where they name something to sound sound a certain way, or for you to assume what it is when it's something completely different. Yeah. Yeah, the words like words are weird, and etymology of words are super weird.
Oh yeah.
Like, and like the words that we completely have wrong. Like, what's one? Like compassion. Compassion is compass. It's the word compassion actually, like, the definition is like to spin while others stay still. And you're just like, what? That's not what at all I thought that was supposed to mean. And then you go research the meaning of that, and it means completely something else to how we use it today.
Of course.
And it's just like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And then like I watch do a lot of research and look at a lot of really, really, really old newspapers. And that is just so wild because they used words completely different back then. And and then you got to start wondering, like, is that how they've been, like, you know, selling the deception to us, you know, like with using languages and math and all this stuff. And it just, there's so much room for deception and all this stuff. And I don't think people really acknowledge it. You know, and then you have time on top of it, time passing, and, you know, and just...
Oh, of course.
It's crazy.
Of course. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, and that is like, you know, I'm going to have to probably end this pretty quick here. I'm going to have to get on the road. But, you know, my main point is that, you know, it's kind of stupid to, you know, sit here and argue about some of these conspiracy theories, although you might find some, you know, some like loopholes here where it's just like, well, maybe we've been lied to about something, you know, and of course, you know, research that, you know, don't necessarily input, you know, biased ideology in place of it, you know.
That's what I'm here defending, basically. I mean, that's what I'm here trying to out, is the whole biased, you know, like...
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's more empowering to understand, like, the word mortgage, or understand how how we are part of the system and how the system is hedging us to the system's benefit, and pursue things that, you know, would be beneficial to the outcome of our lives, to the quality of our lives. Mm-hmm. And not just sit here spin off for ego's sake, going, well, I'm awoke, you know, because I understand, I think the earth is flat, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think it's like, you know...
That's definitely not what I put out.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, you know, I think you probably... I mean, I think your arguments would definitely work better with those types of people, but I'm an agnostic. I am in the middle. I'm pointing at both arguments and being like, I don't think either of you have a foot to stand on. And it's the same thing with atheism and theism. Like, you know, so many atheist friends, and they just think they know everything. You know, like, every atheist I know thinks they know everything, and it's totally crazy. Because I'm like, you know, you're just depending on what a bunch of guys said in a book too, you know, like, you haven't done all science, you haven't researched, you haven't devoted your life to every single corner of science in the world. So at the end of the day, you're appealing to authority when you say that these things are true. Like, we're talking debates here and like the actual words of these meanings, and like, I that's where I'm here, you know, and I talk like Daryl, where he's completely on the other end of the spectrum. Like, I think these conversations, and that conversation is really important, because I've never, you know, I've seen a ton of flat earth debates, and they're mostly terrible, and the flat earthers that are debating are awful. Like, they use awful arguments. That's why, you know, and just as awful as the antis, and that's why I'm kind of here to point that out. Is that like, hey guys, maybe we should, you know, focus on figuring out what's actually true instead of arguing on the internet all day, you know, using our elementary school education as, you know, some sort of thing to like gloat about, you know, like, oh, I graduated elementary school, you know, like, it's just, it's funny to me, you know, when we're all supposed to be intellectuals, you know, like, grabbing and then you got a lot of people that will side with people like that just because they're on their side, despite the fact that the arguments are still horrible, you know. And like, I'm on both sides, so I'm arguing, you know, like, I'm on the side of truth, so I'm trying to point out, hey, you guys, you know, like, you're not having the greatest arguments, and you don't have this evidence that you claim you have, you know, so let's go find that, instead of just dismissing everyone dismissing each other. It's divide and conquer. That's why, you know, they've made flat earth debunk documentaries like instantly once flat earth came out. Like, it's like they have to have an answer to these things to get everyone arguing, to keep us divided, to keep us believing in police and government and all this stuff. You know, the whole idea that humans are inherently evil is just completely horrible that they've forced that on us, because that just makes us makes us afraid of our neighbors and us believing that we need police and government and all these things. So,
even Facebook, even stuff like social media. I mean, we're sitting here thinking we're so important, arguing in a flat Earth group. Yeah, but at the same time, Zuck is like monetizing our eyeballs and our clicks.
Yeah, and they know what posts cause arguments, and they push those posts on everyone, and they want people arguing more than they want anything. It's absolutely crazy. That's why, like, when I post about veganism and flat Earth, my Facebook gets thousands of clicks in a day, and I post about anything else and there's nothing, it's completely like an acceptable form of racism to shit on vegans and flat earthers these days. And the arguments that are used against the two are completely fallacious. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's, it's all funny stuff. But I appreciate you, meeting me face to face. It's been years I've been challenging people to do live chats, and no one does them, and now people are starting to do it, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Yeah. No, I'm cool with it. It's just my point is, I just think there's a lot more life important things out there that pertain to the quality of our lives that we can actually educate ourselves on.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can hedge that to our benefit, because that's all, like even with the financial system, learn about it and hedge it to your benefit.
Yeah, there's enough of us in this realm, though, that we can be, there could be tons of us doing different things and researching different things, and we can all talk to each other about it, and, like, where you might see a flat earther who wants to go cross Antarctica to find if there's a utopia over there, where you might not think that's very realistic. He might, and I would rather someone go check that out, rather than not know, so that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, exactly. Go find a giant cat over there knocking buildings off the side.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, this is fun, man.
Yeah.
I want to be reborn as a cat next life.
Well, cool, man. Yeah, I'll let you go.
All right, man.
Talk to you later.
All right, man. Peace out. Thank you.
See ya.